Nothing Personal starts in 30 seconds. It's just business. This is Nothing Personal.
Here you go. Here you go.
Give me everything. That's the Nothing Personal word of the day. It is Wednesday, August 7th, 2024. Yes, I am laughing already at 5 a.m. locally as I am trying to practice with Coca and Sarah with 2 minutes to go until we're live, which we are at 8 a.m. Eastern, because that's what we do, singing Pitbull lyrics that I've danced to at clubs in various places around this fine world. And the music is playing. I'm getting ready. I'm getting nervous. And I'm me not working hard. Yeah, right. Picture that with Kodak. And better yet, go to Times Square. Take a picture of me with the Kodak. Tonight. So I got all this in my head. Meanwhile, there's an entire sports business story to discuss that we're going to talk about with Pitbull, with the insane announcement that FIU is renaming its football stadium Pitbull Stadium. People were asking questions. I was getting emails at davidsamsonpodcast.com and some stuff in my Twitter account at David P. Samson asking people for me to remind you about the history of Pitbull and the Marlins. Yes, there is a history. Yes, we had Pitbull as our hype guy before he was Pitbull. And yes, Pitbull left the Marlins when I insisted he leave the Marlins because he wasn't yet Pitbull because something happened. And then he came back and became a huge friend of the team. He even performed when we changed from the Florida Marlins to the Miami Marlins on 11/11/11, one of the days that Mark Anthony met one of his ex-wives. I only know that because we were comparing tattoos one day, and he had an 11/11/11. I said, wait a minute. That's when the Marlins became Miami. He said, oh, okay. I do not have an 11/11/11 tattoo, but on 11/11/11, we had these great new uniforms, rebranding, and there's Pitbull, who had become an international sensation at that point, did us a solid by coming back to Marlins Park, where we did that announcement of the brand change, when all of you said, man, there are too many colors on the M. And then it became one of the top selling hats of the year. Starting the show with Pitbull was not something I had on my bingo card. We got the Olympics going on. So many interesting things in baseball, including the White Sox finally winning the game. Some NBA stuff I want to get to, but I'm sorry, I'm starting with this because what an interesting deal that was cut. So let me review what is happening currently with Armando Christian Perez, who you may not know is Pitbull. He is an extremely philanthropic man, which is amazing what he gives back to the community. He got involved with a type of school called a slam school, which is like a charter school, but it's for sports and other disciplines, sort of the opposite of STEM, but equally as important. And we had a slam school near Marlins Park, and we would go there and do speeches and clinics through our community department with the Marlins. He just would be known. He never forgot Miami. Just a really, let's just say that Pitbull is a good man. This deal with FIU is very interesting. The way it's being reported is that somehow he's paying to get his name on the stadium, that it's going to be called Pitbull Stadium. The way a company gets to name a stadium, it's called the naming rights deal. And the way you get a naming rights deal is you go to a company and the company pays you money, and then you decide what assets you are going to give the company. You can give them a sign, you can give them a commercial, you can go behind the plate, you can go down the line, you can go mid-court, on the ice, whatever the sport. But you can name an area, the Pitbull Club, which could be the premium area where there's seats or suites. You can name the suite level. You can name the escalators. You can name the clubhouse. There are myriad naming opportunities, and it's all done in order to bring revenue to the team. So FIU is figuring, what do I do to raise revenue for our program? Hey, Pitbull, you want to be associated with FIU? We're selling the naming rights to the stadium. What's your interest? And Pitbull said, I got an idea. Let's do a deal where I get my name everywhere. You give me everything. And here's what I'll do for you. I'll give you $1.25 million per year. In addition, I'll post a couple times on social media. That'll be fun. I'll go to some events. I'll sign some autographs. I'll sing some songs. I may write an anthem, an FIU anthem that you can play. And FIU would say to him, well, to name the stadium for 1.25 million, that is way too low. There's no naming rights deal for a stadium that should be at 1.25 million. And Pitbull said, but wait a minute. It's sort of like an endorsement deal because you're paying me for the association with FIU. You're paying me for all the things I'm going to do and the brilliant exposure that FIU is going to get by having the only football stadium in the world named for a musician. I mean, Snoop Dogg got a bowl name, but that was his gin and juice company. So this will be a first. We are going to take public education in Miami to the next step. Dale, trust me. And so what I was interested is how they would present this. And Pitbull himself said that the partnership with FIU is a true honor. The partnership. We used to have code names for that. We would announce a sponsorship deal. We would want to do it as a partnership because we would want certain brands to be associated with our team. FIU goes out, they do a deal with Pitbull. They call it a partnership, but because it's Pitbull, then they get to do a deal with a car dealership. And so the stadium is officially known as South Dade, Miami-Dade, Kia Field at Pitbull Stadium. Let me ask you a question, South Dade Kia, and I know you had a great release and you're all excited to be associated with Pitbull and FIU, but do you think that your name will ever be referred to as the name of the stadium? You're going to have to insist that broadcasters name it in full, and they will to start. We all meet with the broadcasters and we say, okay, the name of our stadium is blank, and we'd like you to call it that, but then it becomes a nickname or something becomes short. Welcome to South Dade Kia Field at Pitbull Stadium, where today FIU, ranked number Gimel, will take on FAU, ranked number Delta. Then, during the course of the game, welcome back to Pitbull Stadium. Pitbull gets the absolute better end of a deal whenever you've got a name. Remember the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim? Los Angeles Angels. It just takes me at Nothing Personal to keep referring to them as Anaheim. So they found a way to do this partnership with Pitbull where it gives them this cool factor. And the cool factor is to be associated with him, who is Mr. 305. The cool factor is mitigated, in my opinion, by the deal. Now, they can bring in South Dade Kia for whatever they bring them in for. But what was the reason that South Dade Kia did not get the name of the stadium? Because their deal wasn't big enough to warrant that. Because if South Dade Kia were willing to give more money and say, hey, we want the name of the stadium, FIU would have to say yes. But South Dade Kia was willing to say, we'll give less, but let's partner with Pitbull. Let's have Pitbull give money as well, get his name on the stadium at a discount, but we'll make it all even by giving him an endorsement. And all he has to do is make all these appearances and do some social media posts, which, as it turns out, people like Pitbull may or may not do, like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who was supposed to do those social media posts for the Army and said, you know what? I don't feel like doing it. And then the Army got no recruits. I'm fascinated to see how this turns out. This is the second time that this has come across our desk here on Nothing Personal. We did a segment when there was an interesting naming rights deal that was done in Charlotte with the Hornets. Remember that? Remember the Feastables? That was Mr. Beast, and he was trying this whole new partnership he announced. He was super excited. Now, I didn't associate with Mr. Beast with Charlotte, but that's a different story. The way you associate Pitbull with Miami. However, that Feastables deal with the Hornets was DOA. It lasted a season. And then Mr. Beast was like, well, I'm not sure this is worth it. Pitbull can be as generous as he wants. A sponsorship deal is generally not deductible as a gift. You can give a gift to a university and you can deduct that. His $1.25 million is not able to be fully deducted because he's getting a benefit for that. He is also getting endorsed, which is income in theory, for the consideration he's giving by going to events and by doing posts and other things he's doing. So his accountants were involved, his lawyers were involved. And for us, we say, all right, welcome to Pitbull Stadium. Sorry, South Dade Kia. Did you watch? Are you still watching the Olympics? Is that a thing, Coca? Everyone's got to be excited. Peacock is still doing great. The Gold Zone is phenomenal. I'm still watching. Something happened yesterday that deserves your immediate attention, and it is not what happened in the USA-Brazil game where USA crushed them. We could talk about all you want. Does it really matter? Embiid getting booed. Shocking. Steve Kerr and his rotation. Nah. We could talk about the Serbia-Australia game and what Josh Giddey did, and Patty Mills tell you that Serbia overcame the largest deficit ever to win a game, which they did. We could tell you that Kevin Durant's the all-time leading scorer, but I don't want to talk about that. I could talk about the women's national team, which is super cool. They're going to win again, which is insane. They just don't lose. They're now going for the gold, the women's national soccer team. I'd like to spend a minute on the boxer, Khalif. She's into the gold medal match, which is going to take place on Friday. I don't know that things have calmed down in the way I wish they had and would. I am still getting, Coca, I am still getting people responding to tweets from days ago where I am slightly concerned that people did not listen to the show and do not understand the nuance of my point, which is the media and any individual outside of the media who has a big platform, who uses their platform to spread misinformation, that is hurtful. The retraction always gets less traction than the insinuation. But this story will continue to live because she's going to win, in theory, a gold medal, which will cause more people to discuss how unfair it is to lose. But none of that is what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the Cuban wrestler. This, to me, is the story of the Olympics. I've never seen anything like it. Mian Lopez. A name you may not have heard of. A guy who weighs 300 pounds. A guy from Cuba. Never defected. He has been wrestling for Cuba since the 2004 Olympics. In 2008, he won the gold medal in Greco-Roman wrestling, and he hasn't lost the gold medal since. He just won his 5th gold medal. Do you know how many people have won 5 straight gold medals in 5 straight Olympics? 3. Do you know 2 of them play for the U.S. women's basketball team? Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi. Do you know that the only person in an individual event of any country ever in the history of the Olympics to win 5 gold medals is Mian Lopez? There is a viral shot, and it's quite amazing, of him winning this gold medal and then literally taking off his shoes and placing them in the center of the ring as he was going to walk into the sunset. He is 41 years old. I was trying to imagine, is what LeBron doing at 39, is that really what we're talking about? No. This is individual Greco-Roman wrestling. This is something that 41-year-olds should not be doing. You age out because you can't keep yourself in shape. You can't keep yourself strong. You're always going to get passed by younger people. He's been doing it and winning the gold since 2008 for 16 years. 41 minus 16. Do you know what that is quickly? 25 years old. He was a 25-year-old gold medal winner. That's pretty prime. And no one's beat him since. One of his tricks of the trade, and it's funny how he says this, he doesn't do any other international competitions other than the Olympics. He just spends all the time training, which is very convenient in Cuba because then he doesn't have to ever spend any time behind bars. And he never has to have anybody worried that he's going to somehow go to a competition and then not come back. He somehow always comes back and then keeps winning. He certainly does talk about how great his country is and all of the propaganda that you could ever want. And I certainly am not going to politicize this moment, except to tell you that what he's achieving on the mat, we've never seen anything like it. He may not hold the record for long, as Diana Taurasi is going for her 6th gold medal in a row. She has been a critical part of the U.S. women's team. Without her, they'd have no chance for a gold medal. So it's a good thing she's on the team. Congratulations, Mian Lopez. The real congratulations today, though? No, it's not bigger. What Lopez did is bigger, isn't it? I mean, we congratulated Pitbull. Way to go. Congratulate FIU. That was moderate congratulations. Hey, way to go to the boxer Khalif. You know, it's nice. LeBron and Steve Kerr, I'm happy you're into the semis. That's good. I think I'm going to save my number one congrats. Dear Jerry, I just wanted to tell you how happy I am that the Chicago White Sox finally won a game. And they ended their 21-game losing streak with a 5-1 victory over the Aths in Oakland. The Athletics did something that I would have approved of at the time, and I look back now and I get shivers. The Athletics were taunting the White Sox in pregame by playing a Taylor Swift song of 22. As in, you will get your 22nd loss in a row during this game. And then the White Sox said, you know what? How about enough of this? So they decided to end their losing streak. It's pretty remarkable how long it's been, and the stats now come out, and now they're set in stone. First win since July 27th or whatever the date is. First, or it's July 7th, or I can't remember what day it is. First pitcher to get a win since blank. Just every stat that's bad. They're still 60 games under or so 500. The quotes at the end of the game were perfect. Pedro Grifol, the manager, saying, we knew it was just a matter of time. These guys play hard. We played a clean game. It's so hard to come back from injury as a professional athlete. I don't give you enough detail about the work that's done behind the scenes in rehab. I've never done a big enough segment going through the hours that players spend in the training room, the hours that players spend in physical therapy, all the things that you do. We just say, oh, the guy's got Tommy John, see in a year. And we don't give you, and that's my fault. If we're going to have a show like Nothing Personal where we give you insight into things, I should take you inside the rehabilitation for Tommy John because I've witnessed it way too many times. What players do in order to get rehab done, to get in a position to pitch, the loneliness, the self-motivation that's required, the discipline. Now, of course, you could tell me they're on the major league disabled list, they're injured list, they're getting paid at their major league rate, they're accruing service time, but I'm telling you, it still takes an amount of mental and physical will that is really what helps make them professional athletes. The Dodgers have a quarterback named quarterback, 4.869. The Dodgers have a pitcher named Brusdar Graterol, and he's one of their high leverage late inning guys, and he hasn't pitched this year because he had some shoulder issues. He made his debut yesterday. 8 pitches in, he pulled an Aaron Rodgers. Except, unlike Aaron Rodgers, Graterol, when escorted off the field by Kike Hernandez and the trainer, was basically crying and he has a grade 3 hamstring, which is that's it. He's out for the season for sure. A grade 3 hamstring, there's no such thing as a hamstring strain. Side note, even the slightest hamstring strain is still a slight tear of your hamstring, but grade 3 means the damn thing came off the bone practically. The rehab required for that is months and months and months to get your hamstring right again. And when you are a pitcher, we don't screw around, because if you can't use your legs properly, you are going to have elbow and shoulder issues. And if you compensate for a bad leg, you will change your mechanics, which is going to lead to another injury. So Gratterall is absolutely done. And you could just look and you could say to yourself, how sad is that? Now, I don't normally consider myself the empathetic kind of guy, but watching him walk off the field, I guess I've experienced it enough times with enough players that were my players. I never felt it really for visiting players, especially in our division, which reminds me, Coca, side note. Do you know, we did not talk about this pre-show, but this just occurred to me and I wanted to mention it. There were a bunch of articles written about the trade deadline that happened in baseball just a week ago, maybe over a week ago yesterday. And they always talk about trades that happened, trades that didn't happen. And one of the articles talked about a trade that didn't happen because this team did not want to trade within its division. In my day, when we started in this game, our first season was 2000. That was a thing because there was something called the unbalanced schedule, which means you played people in your division huge numbers, like 19 times a year out of 162 games. And there was always an owner who would say to his GM, I don't want to look at this player. We're going to trade him to the other league, trade him to another division. Do not trade him in my division. I don't want to see him. There were GMs who would say, I don't want to see the player hurt us. It'll make me look bad. So I don't want to look at him. Nowadays, it's a balanced schedule. Fewer games against teams in your division because you're playing every team in baseball every year. I would say in 2012, even earlier, 11, 10, we started getting rid of the concept of don't trade players in your division. Coca, you'd have to go back, and don't do it now. We're in the middle of the show. But you'd have to go back to see the first time we did a trade inside the NL East, whether it was with the Expos, which I doubt we did, or with the Marlins, which I know we did because we did trades. We traded Delgado to the Mets, and that was in 2006. So that could have been the first one. And I remember having the talk with the owner at the time because he didn't want the Mets to win games. That was a big thing. You can imagine why as a New Yorker. But it was, hey, this is our best deal. Let's not hurt our team going forward. And it ended up being whatever. We got rid of most of Delgado's money. It worked out fine. It didn't work out at all. Actually, signing Delgado in 05, we wanted to win the World Series with him. And we didn't. And we had a reboot, which means we had to trade everybody. But the point is, the concept of not trading in division, it's gone now. So don't let your GM of the team you love the most or your owner talk about that as a reason a trade wasn't done. When trades don't happen in baseball now, it is merely because the value that you are getting from someone is greater than the value you're getting from someone else. Current GMs, the analytic kind, those GMs have nothing against trading within their division. If there's any remnant of that, it's only due to an owner, an old school owner, holding on to things that don't matter anymore. I don't know why that just came into my head, Coca, but that's what we do on Nothing Personal. Every once in a while, something will just come in my head, and that did. All right, let's take a break. We have a lot to cover after the break, so we got to get to it. We're going to review a movie. We're going to talk about Charles Barkley. We're going to talk about the NBA because there is a funny thing going on in Europe right now, and I don't mean the Olympics. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. It's David Samson coming at you live at 5:24 Pacific Time, 8:24 Eastern Time, unless you're on the DraftKings Network, in which case it's 10:24 Eastern Time. Thank you for being here. We will be back live again tomorrow. Make sure you tune in tomorrow because we're going to have a little talk about what's coming up later on Friday and next week. Some special shows are coming out. Code word for special shows coming out. No matter where I am or what time of day it is, no matter what I'm doing during the course of daylight hours, I'm still watching a movie and reviewing one for you. I finally watched If. If is the movie that was written and directed by John Krasinski, Emily Blunt's husband, the guy from The Office. If stars Ryan Reynolds. I didn't want to see If. I thought that it was going to be an absolutely ridiculous movie of no interest to me as an adult, and I certainly don't have little kids around to watch it anymore. So I didn't see it in the theater, even though I love Ryan Reynolds and I love John Krasinski, and I want to repay them by happy to give them $19 for their efforts. But then it became available for streaming, and I said, fine. It was one of those random afternoons or late nights, I can't remember when, and I just bought it, rented it, pressed play, and I ended up 0 phone checks. Can you believe that? I couldn't. I expected that I would work on the show while watching the movie. I may even make some calls, do some texting, maybe look at some Van Wilder clips, maybe watch The Edge of Tomorrow to think of Krasinski's wife. I don't know. I had all sorts of things in my head. I was ready for split screen. I do that when I think I'm about to watch a movie that I'm not going to like. I got the iPad ready in case I want to do 2 things at once. Let me tell you a thing or two. If was awesome. I was all in from the beginning. It caught me immediately, and it kept me until the rolling credits. So credit to you, John. Credit to you, Ryan, and everyone else in the movie, including the little girl whose name escapes me. But the part she played was a central star of the movie, really, along with Ryan. I haven't seen Inside Out 2 yet. I have to see that. That's got it. I think it starts streaming in September, Coca. Anyway, If, go see it. It's good. Should we call her out? It's Kaylee Fleming. Thank you. Good job, Kaylee. One of my favorite things about working at Metalark and getting to work around Dan and Pablo and everybody else, Stugatz. One of my favorite things is I get to do the sporting class with John Skipper, and hosted by Pablo Torre, and John and I and Pablo do this show every couple weeks whenever schedules permit. I'd love to do it more consistently. We'll try for you. It's a popular show, but I get to sit across from John Skipper and I get to listen because it's very important in that show to listen to what he's saying. He listens to what I'm saying. We both get prodded by Pablo, which is what a good interviewer does. We have spent so much time talking about the NBA and its new media rights deal, and it hasn't gotten stale. It hasn't gotten boring. We've spent time talking about Charles Barkley. We laughed with you, the audience, when Barkley announced his retirement. We told you on Nothing Personal and on the Sporting Class that it was total horse hockey. Of course, he wasn't retiring. He wasn't walking away from a $210 million contract. There were rumors that he was going to go to ESPN or Amazon, NBC. I asked in a very biting way, who would want to hire this guy, given how outspoken he's been? He's been outspoken against Turner. He's been outspoken against Warner Brothers Discovery. He has been listening to possible offers from other networks. Well, it turns out that yesterday we finally got clarity. Maybe Charles Barkley can stop going on his tour now, going on podcasts, going on broadcasts. Maybe he can stop talking about how bad the guys are at Warner Brothers, how ridiculous they are to have sued the NBA, how absurd they are to not take into account the lives of all the producers, directors, and talent people who are involved in shows and ancillary programming around the NBA. He can stop talking about the fact that he's under contract, but screw them, and he's ready to look around and listening already. Warner Brothers Discovery said, Uncle, we don't want this anymore. Charles, here's how we're going to do this. Either we're about to announce that all is great and we love each other, or we're going to work out a deal where you leave. You tell me. John Skipper, ahead of the game, said, I think Charles Barkley stays at Turner, forget retires, and I think losing the NBA won't matter because they're going to make him into a multi-platform star doing a bunch of different shows. And I said, you mean like on CNN Plus? It's not like Charles Barkley is Stephen A. Smith. Is he better? Is he worse? I'll leave that up to you. It's a whole different world when you ask a loyal audience who sees you in one way. It's like wondering, will Dan Levy ever be able to break David Rose? It's a great question. Being typecast is something the Brady Bunch has been working through, and it causes drug use. Charles Barkley, for better or for worse, is he typecast as inside the NBA? Maybe. Is there other programming that Warner Brothers Discovery will try to figure out to do with him? That's why they made this announcement. They didn't just let him serve out his contract, either in anonymity, which would never happen, or without some sort of announcement. They took the time yesterday for a full-blown, all-in, look at him, he loves me, we love him, we're renewing our vows. There were statements released, and it was Barkley who was doing his job. Can you imagine if every year for Aaron Judge's long-term deal with the Yankees, they did a press conference where Aaron Judge announced, hey, just want to say I'm staying put. Of course you are. You're under contract. You'll stay put till I trade you or till I tell you you're not staying put, until I release you and take away your nameplate. But Charles Barkley said, I love my TNT sports family. Put a little tear in my eye. My number one priority has been and always will be our people and keeping everyone together for as long as possible. Ignoring the fact that I went to talk to NBC and Disney and Amazon, and I tried to see how much money I could get, but part of the meeting was, hey, I got about 200 crew members, and they were like, all right, great, Charles. Now, I love that he's loyal to his people. I do. But statement worthy on a random day in August in year 3 of an 11-year deal? We have the most amazing people. They are the best at what they do. I'm looking forward to continuing to work with them, both on the shows we currently have. Here we go. This is Barkley. And new ones we develop together in the future. That doesn't sound a little like Stephen A to you? It doesn't sound a little bit like what Barkley is going to do is do some entertainment, some variety, maybe some other sports? Maybe that's his deal with TNT. If we lose the NBA, keep paying me my money. It makes me smile just a tad that they did this yesterday because they're in the middle of a lawsuit, number one, trying to get the rights long term, which Warner Brothers Discovery released that entire statement that we told you about on the sporting class, and the NBA shooed them away like a damn gnat. Do they think a statement like that is helpful or in any way dispositive in the lawsuit? The judge, the jury, inadmissible, don't care. Not relevant. You've got an employee who wants to stay. Great. We're happy to hear it. That has nothing to do with your ability or right of matching the deals that the NBA did. The NBA and Warner Brothers are in this fight. Warner Brothers makes this announcement about Charles, and you should be saying to yourself, which I still am, why now? So we know the why now can't be because it's helpful to the lawsuit, because it's not. There is no legal theory by which re-establishing your employee says, oh, you win. My bad. You win the lawsuit. They have another year of inside the NBA, though John Skipper said one of the settlements could be that Amazon would start now. Interesting. Possible. But let's say TNT still has another year. Wouldn't you make this announcement when the NBA is gone from TNT? Hey, we may have lost the NBA, but our biggest asset is Charles Barkley. And we are going to employ that asset in the following 5 ways. We are pleased to announce the start of the C Squared A squared plus B squared equals C squared show. And you get two hosts to work with Charles, a host with the name of A, a host with the name of B, and then C for Charles Barkley. He has a podcast that will be once a week. Whatever the case is, you are showing your stockholders, your investors, you're showing the marketplace. This is why we paid him $20 million a year. This is why we are using him, how we're using him, and we expect to get an ROI on his contract. Signing all those inside the NBA deals that they did, people said, well, they wouldn't have signed him if they didn't know they were keeping TNT, keeping the NBA on TNT. Well, they may have gotten that wrong. I just found the whole thing to be silly, Coca. I must admit. Everyone had statements. Isn't that so funny that you would do that? I keep thinking about it now, live, that it became a main story. Charles Barkley has become the main story of Warner Brothers Discovery and their NBA on TNT coverage, as though it's not the fans, which they claim in the statement in the lawsuit, and how bad it is for the fans that the NBA did not allow them to match. Even to TNT, the number one issue is not the fans or even keeping the NBA. The number one issue appears to be making sure you associate with Charles Barkley. Whew. That's just cray-cray. But we'll see what happens. Do you know how hard we worked to leave Europe? I mean, if those of you pay attention in history, it was tough for us to gain our independence from Great Britain. Not easy. We could argue until we're white in the face, blue in the face, black in the face, brown in the face. Pick your color, pick your poison. We could argue that we've done a lot to screw it up since we gained our independence. I'd have an easy time taking one side of that argument, but I'd also be able to take the other, which is what any lawyer can do. Anyone who's done debate, you can take both sides of anything. But yet we worked pretty hard to gain our independence. And do you know what sports leagues are doing now? The NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball. They are doing everything they can to run back across the pond and stick their flag back in Europe and say, hey, King George, you were right. We'll be back. That's a Hamilton reference for those of you paying attention at 8:37 on a random Wednesday morning. Adam Silver wants Europe. He's jonesing for Europe so badly. Adam Silver did an interview with the Associated Press basically saying we are having major talks with basketball's governing body, with the global governing body. We want to increase the footprint of the NBA in Europe because that's going to be super helpful to everybody. We want to find a way. Should we expand? Should we maybe pay for and start a new league like the WNBA, but make it a European league that would compete with other leagues, but it would be NBA owned? What should we do? Should we bring a bunch of teams and go full Bryce Harper and bring 6 or 7 teams and do the in-season tournament brought to you by Emirates, the Emirates Cup? No more flags, Lakers, and bring that over and do it in Europe? Maybe skip Vegas? I mean, who the heck would want to skip Vegas? Why is Adam Silver doing all of this? Do you remember all the times that I talk about the competition between baseball and football and basketball and football and baseball and basketball? Roger Goodell and the NFL are the league behemoths. They're the league bullies. They've got the revenue where we want it. They've got the national TV deals where we want it. They've got numbers. They've got a salary cap. There's so many ways that we are envious of the NFL, and it's not just us. Basketball is too. Basketball goes to London. They're trying to imitate football going to London. And football has been going to London for a very long time. We've talked about the Jaguars. And every time that the NFL goes to London, the commissioner says the same thing. We own London. And then baseball plays a series in London. And they say, listen, We own South America, but we are gaining ground here in the most important Europe. When basketball goes to Europe, Adam Silver stands up and says, we own Europe. They're all lying because the truth is none of them own Europe. The NFL wishes they owned it the way that they talk about doing it. I guess you fake it till you make it. You keep telling people that you own something, and I guess you own it, sort of like adverse possession. If you don't know what adverse possession is, it's when you keep saying that something's yours, and then all of a sudden it becomes yours. Hey, build a fence on property that's not yours. After a couple years, maybe 30, guess what? It's yours. Adverse possession. Now, of course, you got to tell people, hey, look at me. Look at my fence. So what Roger Goodell does, he says, look at me. Look at us in Europe. Adam Silver says, hold on. And so he goes public during this exciting time when the U.S. men's basketball team is trying to win the gold medal, which they will. And they've got this dream team circa 1992 that is in Paris, London. Everybody talk about pop music, talk about. So Adam Silver decides this is the perfect time. Now, why? Not because the Olympics are in Paris. Not at all because the men's team is doing as well as they're doing. The reason why Adam Silver gave this interview and talked so much about Europe, to me, and I think you may agree, it's because he wants to show his owners, he wants to show the global markets who are watching, he wants to show global investors who are paying attention. Do not mistaken us for an American league. We are a worldwide conglomerate. We will have our tentacles into everything. If we want to take Europe, we will start a league in Europe. Why do you think that Adam Silver used this world stage to talk about wanting world dominance? Do you think it has to do with the Amazon deal, where his talking point with doing his Amazon media rights deal was always the distribution of Amazon worldwide is what we wanted, and Warner Brothers and Max couldn't match it? We can laugh all we want about these leagues wanting world domination, but it's not a laughing matter. They do want world domination. And the reason all goes back to, if you own a team in a league that is a world dominant league, then your team is not worth 3 billion, 4 billion, 6 billion. It's 10 billion. It's 15 billion. That is how you show the might of your league and you catch the NFL, is you get franchise valuations that pass the NFL. And the reason to do that, and the only way to do that, is to get revenue and more quote unquote worldwide domination. This is unreal, the Titans that we're watching at play. It's unreal, actually. And do you think the NFL or Major League Baseball are going to sit back and let this just happen? Adam just made a move. Roger and Rob, you're on the clock. Nothing personal pick of the day, presented by DraftKings. Stay tuned because you'll hear more about DraftKings and all it has to offer throughout the show. DraftKings, the crown is yours. We got a chance at history tonight. There is nothing cooler than when your pitcher throws a no-hitter and then has his next start, because it's another opportunity for there to be a second Johnny Vandermeer. There's only one Johnny Vandermeer. He's the only person in history of baseball who threw back-to-back no-hitters. But tonight we have a chance. All Blake Snell has to do is go 9 innings pitched for the second time in his career, to go 8 innings pitched for the second time in his career, to rebound off a 114-pitch outing and once again toe the rubber for 27 outs and not let the Nationals give up a hit. Do you like your chances? Well, DraftKings Odds does not like the chances, but I do. My pick of the day is that Blake Snell, after all of his bravado, remember after the last no-hitter when he sort of lost his mind and he said, all of you talking about five and dive, all of you people complaining that I don't do enough, well, look at this game. And people around the sport said to themselves, hey, Blake, you did it one time. That's really not enough to get rid of your reputation as being a five and dive guy. You're going to have to do it more consistently. Why don't you take a look at a Nolan Ryan, a Gaylord Perry, a Don Sutton? Why don't you take a look at pitchers who give innings, who give bulk? So, Blake Snell's a proud guy. Blake Snell is still reeling over his offseason free agency debacle, still furious that he had to take a short-term deal with the San Francisco Giants. So he's got a chance tonight to do something cool. So we've got two wagers today that are presented by DraftKings. One, Blake Snell will get over 7.5 strikeouts. You are getting plus 130 for that. And two, Blake Snell will get over 18.5 outs. Do the math. That means he will pitch more than 6 1/3. That means he will get through 6, get into the 7th, get an out. And once he gets one out in the 7th, see whatever happens. But then we get a plus 145. So today's Nothing Personal Pick of the Day presented by DraftKings. Blake Snell over 7.5 Ks and Blake Snell over 6 1/3 innings pitched. You'll get plus 130 for the former, plus 145 for the latter. Nothing Personal Pick of the Day presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. Last night, we had a great, please listen to yesterday's show. Staggering how that happened. We had Chris Sale and the Braves over the Brewers until we learned during the show that Chris Sale wasn't pitching, and we switched our pick of the day to the Brewers, and we got plus 120 to take the Brewers, who beat Bryce Elder and all the other people from the Braves 10-0. Yes, we did. We got a win. We are 104 and 110. We are crawling back to even, baby, and it's only August 7th. Boom. That was our result yesterday. I don't read the obituaries. I know a lot of people who do. They get the New York Times obituaries and they're looking for their name. Maybe they always say that as a joke, looking for other people's names. I'm not really interested. I never was as a kid. I'm scared of death. I think about death way too often. I don't like the idea of anything permanent other than, tattoos and children. And so every day you hear a bad story. Yesterday's story bothered me more than usual. Billy Beane died yesterday. Now, people were confused, thinking that the general manager of the Oakland A's died, or that the guy who was played by Brad Pitt died. That's not who died. There are two Billy Beanes in baseball. Billy Beane, the guy from the Oakland A's who you've heard of, and Billy Beane, this Billy Beane, who I was introduced to in the early 2000s as he became the chief of diversity because he was a gay Major League Baseball player, and he would meet with us. We had him do programs with the Marlins. I was very, very forward in this regard. What he did was awe-inspiring, actually. He was willing to go out there and meet with players on 30 teams, meet with fans in 30 cities, meet with people who did not have a tolerant bone in their body, meet with people who didn't understand how you could be an athlete and be gay, meet with people who would ask questions. What did you do about team showers? What did you do? Were you aroused? I heard him ask questions that would knock your socks off, and he answered them with aplomb. He took his job incredibly seriously, and he brought love and tolerance to baseball in a way that I'm not sure anyone has, maybe other than Rachel Robinson. But I just wanted to give a shout out because people spend a life and everything's great, and then you have a little pain, and then you're dead. And that's what happened to him. He was only 60 years old, and he got sick recently and then passed away. And I don't want people to forget. That's the thing. We call it legacy. Maybe it's ego. Maybe just doing the right thing. Billy Beane is going to be remembered by all the people whose lives he touched because he made baseball players say it's okay to be part of the LGBTQ plus community because there's more than you realize. He made baseball players and executives realize that it's not about being macho. It's about being tolerant. It's about being understanding, and it's about winning games. He had programs that he started, and he started them for the purpose of educating people about a life that he had to figure out because when he was gay as a baseball player, believe me, you didn't say a word to anyone. My hope for Billy Beane is that he rests in peace and that the lessons that he imparted on everybody will continue for generations to come, and I believe they will. We will be back tomorrow. My name's David Samson.